What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And this one will break down what's going on with Tesla stock and how the share price is looking right now, what's happening to the market very briefly, and what's going on with the news affecting Tesla alongside all this very bullish stuff that is still emerging for Tesla. Before I break anything down about all this information, though, before I get into any more details, I do have to mention a couple of things before starting. Firstly, I am not a financial planner, so take none of this as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull and deposit any amount of money into the account, you are guaranteed up to 12 free stocks. The offer ends very soon, so check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. All right, so looking at Tesla, this thing was up 1.25% overall, holding up quite nicely, despite the fact that SPY sold off at the very end, closing down about 0.06%. So it dropped just a little bit. Apple barely closed green. The Nasdaq and SPX were both kind of red, just barely in the red, if anything. And Tesla is still starting to show some signs of relative strength. It also broke the high it made previously over here. And overall, it's looking quite nice in my opinion. It has a good chance of more potential upside coming forward. But the real question is, what is the news saying about Tesla and how are things looking approaching earnings? So I'm going to talk about that first before I break down how the share price is looking. For now, I just want to remind everyone that we have some very big news coming. We have some big banks reporting earnings this Monday. We have First Bank, just a couple of others. Then for Tuesday, we have Bank of America, Charles Schwab, Morgan Stanley, just a couple of others, PNC as well. And then for Wednesday, we have Goldman Sachs, Tesla, Netflix, IBM, and a bunch of others. We have Ally Bank too. But the biggest one for Wednesday, in my opinion, that I'm going to be watching is going to be Tesla. I can't wait for that. It's going to be very telling about how the company does. And Elon Musk should be speaking over there too. Then for Thursday, we have Capital One, we have Johnson Johnson, Nokia, and just a couple of others. And finally, for Friday, we have American Express and just a couple of other banks too. Not as big compared to like what we saw today. But overall, big earnings are finally starting. This is going to affect how the whole market moves, especially a lot of these bank earnings, which tend to start off their earnings. I mean, Bank of America and Charles Schwab are going to be very big for earlier this week. And then don't forget Tesla for after the market closes on Wednesday. Now, for some big data, I just want to mention there's not really anything coming out that's too significant for next week besides like initial jobless claims. But don't forget, the week after next week, for the 26th of July, we have the FOMC meeting and we have Jerome Powell speaking again. This is going to be very important, so make sure you're ready for that in just about 2 weeks or a little bit less than that. Now, for Tesla, we have some news that came out. Tesla has revealed that they have a new supercharger with contactless bank card areas basically designed in them for a screen. That's very awesome. And there's also news about it coming out over here. They have their own credit card readers. And the reason why they're doing this is because you have to consider that Tesla's supercharger networks used to be just for or exclusively for Tesla owners, which meant that people were able to pay just by using the app. Now what's happening is they opened their supercharger network to non-Tesla electric vehicles, and that means that they need to start requiring a payment systems for the basically charger stations and the different individual parts of them. It's very important they do this so that people who are using like Mercedes cars or like any other cars out there like GM or Ford are now able to be a part of this system. Now, this is also going to open a lot more doors for them and help them continue to grow. The news right here is saying that in California, Tesla was running for $6 million in funding for 4 large supercharger stations with 420 charge points, which is pretty awesome. And as they continue to grow, this is going to become a very important necessity. So very good news for Tesla, in my opinion. There's also this talk about how Tesla slips but still owns 2/3 of the US EV market. In my opinion, it just does not matter how much of the market Tesla owns because you have to remember the competitors around Tesla are also transitioning to EVs. So you have like the Chevy Volt and like other companies also producing them. So what's going to happen over time is these companies are going to be growing too, and eventually Tesla's market share will continue to dip. It's pretty clear that's going to be happening, but it's not the end of the world. That's because of the fact that it's not about how much of the market does Tesla control. How much does Tesla own? That doesn't matter to me. What matters more is, can Tesla keep growing in a very pragmatic manner? And what is Tesla doing to achieve sustainable growth as time goes on? That's going to be much more important. I don't care if their market share keeps dropping because more and more companies are just going to keep coming in and growing. And if anything, Tesla wants the best for them because this competition incentivizes Tesla to become its best self anyways. So I just wanted to note that right now, Tesla actually had about 79, or I'm sorry, it used to have 79% of the registrations in the USA for EVs. Then it went to about 69.95% in 2021. And currently, we actually saw it now at about two thirds. So it has been dropping a little bit, not a big deal whatsoever. And I just wanted to call that out. The Model Y had over 134,000 units. The Model 3 had about 123,000, and the Ford Mustang Mach E had about 25,000. So Tesla's still well above them, but the Chevy Volt does have a lot of progression to be coming. So we're going to eventually see Tesla's market share drop more with all these competitors coming here in the US. And as time goes on, it's not the end of the world. Like I said before, it's going to be completely fine for them. As long as Tesla continues to grow and meets expectations on deliveries, they're going to be completely fine. So this news came out about how a new analyst is predicting a 6% beat on Q2 EPS for Tesla, but they're also telling us that things are not necessarily in the best of places because Gary Black mentioned that Tesla's gross margins are not going to be that great because of all the price cuts which happened. So I did talk about this in the morning. I just wanted to remind you guys about this. This is some very important stuff. What's important is the EPS is predicted to be quite good for them, or beating expectations. Revenue as well for Tesla, as they got lots and lots of sales. We're not too sure about their gross margins. We're not too sure about them, and that's going to have a big effect on their earnings and the reaction for the price action after earnings come out. Now, when it comes to Tesla as well, I just want to mention that the price price ratio is still curling in this upwards direction, which is giving Tesla some signs of relative strength. It's still holding up quite nicely. Tesla's still looking quite decent, and overall, it's a good sign for it. Compared to SPY, Tesla outperformed, and now we're seeing more and more individuals and banks basically adding into this group of positive analysts, right? We had Gary Black say some positive things about Tesla. Now we have Citigroup as a whole saying that they're neutral on Tesla. And we're continuing to see more analysts from these different institutions that are bullish on Tesla as well. Tesla tends to be green about 53% of the time on Mondays. It tends to be a good day for us. So does Tuesday. So we'll see how that goes moving forward. But I do have a warning for everyone, and that is we tend to be a green, right? 78% of the time on during the month of June, basically. And there's a good chance that, yes, the seasonality thing has been playing out because Tesla had a very strong June. If you look at June, look how Tesla was performing for the month of June. If we go back, this was around the time deliveries came out, or like the very as we approached deliveries, basically. You could see Tesla just continue to uptrend. It was just on a very, very strong uptrend, holding up very nicely with all the hype associated with deliveries and etc. And June was a strong month for Tesla overall, right? So this is just like what happens historically. But July has a tendency of not being the strongest month. We're only green about 43% of the time in the month of July historically. And it's one of, I would say, the second or third weakest month. I would say maybe the fourth weakest month of the year for Tesla in general historically. So just be a little bit careful. Now, why am I saying this? This does relate to earnings and what the technicals are telling us, which I'm going to break down in just a couple of minutes. Now, to add on to this, the short interest on Tesla has been dropping. Why is Tesla outperforming the market? Well, one of the reasons is we're starting to see a lot of short covering before the week because shorts know that Tesla's going to likely see some upside approaching next week, and Tesla's going to hold up quite nicely. This is because we tend to get a lot more volume and a lot more hype as we approach earnings, and so far we're seeing more signs of that. The shorts know this, and this is why they're closing their positions early. This is part of why Tesla held up quite nicely and outperformed the market. Now, to add on to this, volume is starting to go up again. This was 90 million a couple of days ago, then 97 million. Then yesterday was 112 million. Today it's 117 million. Volume is going up. We're getting more buyers, more aggressive buyers are coming back in. This is going to likely help Tesla continue to hold up. Now, to add on to this, the short volume is starting to drop a little bit relative to price right about here. That is another bullish signal for Tesla. Now, to add on to all of this, things are looking quite good for Tesla from a technical standpoint. Why am I saying this? Because Tesla outperformed the market by breaking the previous high it made and simultaneously closing quite green while the market closed red. So if you look at Tesla, this thing closed at about 281 and managed to hit 285. In my video from the morning, I told you if we broke 280, we're going to be watching this like 283 area. If we broke that, I'm going to be seeing a move to 285, and that is what Tesla ended up doing. It went almost exactly to 285. Now, that was the more bullish case if that did play out, and that is how it went. But the market sold off at the end of the day, and Tesla sold off with it. But it managed to hold up at the very end and still close kind of green. So overall, Tesla is still doing well. I just want to add that we are approaching earnings. And if you look at the daily chart, Tesla made a new high today and still is on an uptrend technically. Because when you zoom out all the way, I know it's a little hard to see, but since Tesla got this bounce, right, we've been on a clear uptrend. We pushed up, we came down a little bit, then we started to push up very nicely. And then since this period, since Tesla made this low at 152 back around the very end of April, Tesla started uptrending very hard. Dropped a little bit, started pushing up higher, dropped a little bit more, and now it's continuing to push up. Overall, the trend is looking quite bullish. But there is one problem with Tesla I am seeing, and there is a negative divergence that is developing right now. You could see the RSI used to be at 88 before, now it's currently at 68, yet the price is making higher highs. Same thing with the signal line on the MACD and the histograms, and also our stochastic is showing that, suggesting that there could be downside in the future. But here's the thing, hold on. This does not guarantee it's going to start dropping immediately because we're on an uptrend right now. This is simply just in the process of developing. And Tesla could invalidate this signal if it pumps up very hard and we see the RSI follow it. There is a possibility it could invalidate these signals, but just to be safe, we have to be open minded. So, what do I think is going to happen to Tesla over the next couple of trading days? As I mentioned before, as we approach earnings historically, Tesla has a tendency of pumping very, very nicely, getting good volume. Lots of FOMO buyers like to come in, lots of institutions like to hop in as well. So this is very easy to trade, very fun to trade during big events like this. Now, for Tesla, you're going to be watching this 285 resistance. If it breaks down, you're going to be watching like this 290 area. And above that, Tesla has more room for upside. If it gets to the 290s, there's a very good chance it's going to try to go for that 300. I think it still is very possible. Now, you could also argue that Tesla formed a cup and handle like formation right here. It kind of looks like it. It's not like perfect, but it is very close. And on top of this, we had this uh, nice inverse head and shoulders formation that formed right about here at the very end. There's also one like way back here. Let me just show you where it was. Somewhere back here, I saw another inverse head and shoulders like right here that formed before Tesla started uptrending. And zooming out a lot more, you could see it a little bit more clear. I think I have to use the 30-minute time frame. Sorry about that, guys. I think the 30-minute time frame is better. But right here, Tesla had this nice inverse head and shoulders formation that formed right about here. I was looking for this one, right? We had this like head that essentially formed here. We have the left shoulder and the right shoulder, and this thing just started to continue to curl. Now, could it also be forming a giant cup and handle and just trying to go for that 300? That's also very possible. If it breaks 290, there's a good chance it's going to try to hit 300 right before earnings. Now, that's my prediction for approaching earnings, which is going to be on Wednesday. I think it's going to try to get to at least the 290s, 295 around there at the very least, and possibly 300, but just to be safe, we have to watch for the confirmation break. But I do believe there's more upside coming for Tesla. Now, here's the thing about Tesla. It's kind of risky in some ways to hold any options longer term on it. And here's the reason why. It was just like what the analyst Gary Black was saying, okay? Could Tesla pump up more? Yes. It likely is going to pump a lot more all the way up to the 290s, maybe even up to 300, right? But here's the thing. It's going to pump approaching earnings. That's going to be on Wednesday after the market closes. I think Tesla could pump over the next couple of trading days. There's going to be a lot of hype and FOMO coming in. But the problem is we don't know what's going to happen after earnings. That is looked at as an unknown. We don't know what's going to happen, so it does not make sense to try to bet on it. That's why I would likely secure most, if not all of my like options or trading profits right before earnings just to be safe. Now, if earnings are very good, right? If Tesla beats on EPS and revenue, that's awesome, but that's not everything because investors are very concerned about those margins. How are they looking? Is Tesla burning a lot of cash? Are the margins looking bad after all the price cuts? How are they looking? How are they projected to look? Will Tesla have to raise prices later on, or are they going to have to maintain low prices to meet their goals for deliveries? That's what they want to know. It also depends on what Elon Musk says about the guidance of the company. How will the company look over the next few months? I want to remind you guys the last time Elon Musk spoke about Tesla during earnings, he said that things could be very hard for the next 12 months. He mentioned that a recession is coming. He mentioned that he believed that the Fed over tightened, and he said that this could lead to some declines in Tesla and even a big difference between their production and their deliveries in the future. Tesla is prepared for this by cutting prices, but there's no guarantee things are going to hold up if we are truly going to be entering a recession very soon, or like as severe of a recession as Elon Musk is projecting, at least in that sense. So, with that said, okay, could Tesla pump approaching earnings? Sure, but I don't know what's going to happen after earnings. There is a chance Tesla may pump more because it beats on everything. Maybe guidance is not that bad. Or if margins are really bad, if things are not that great for Tesla, we could see this thing come tanking very hard as well. And one technical indicator suggesting that would be this bearish divergence that is developing on the chart right here on the RSI, which means we could see Tesla pump a little bit more approaching earnings. If this bearish divergence is present, I'd be very careful because there would be an increased probability of Tesla potentially selling off after the earnings. All right. So that's my view. That's my honest view, guys. I want to be honest with everyone. There's a possibility, not a guarantee, just a possibility of that happening. Let me draw out how this could look like. Basically, I have Tesla looking like this. Um, Tesla could try to pump a little bit, right? We could see Tesla try to pump up like this, approaching its big earnings, just like this, make its way up to at least the 290 area. But I don't know if it's going to be breaking above 295 or getting to 300. If it does so, it could try to pump a lot more. Let me fix this. Just give me 1 second, guys. So something like this is very possible, right? Where it tries to pump up a lot more and it could get stopped at this high level, or it could just try to break out. So like a more bullish case would be it goes all the way up to like 295, slows down there, and it just keeps going for the 300 right before earnings. That is one possibility. And then earnings come out, okay, wherever Tesla goes. If we get a crazy pump like this, that's very possible. It could stop somewhere in the 290s, or it could go all the way up to 300. But if it goes to 300, that's awesome to witness, but that there's no guarantee it's going to just keep going. Okay, it's going to depend heavily on these earnings. If we get a very strong earnings and everything goes as planned, and guidance is strong, Tesla could gap up to some crazy high level, 320 plus, and just try to keep going, right? To some crazy high level. It could squeeze, right? A lot of shorts. After earnings, it could gap up and start pushing up like this. Or if earnings are bad, if things don't go as planned and something happens that we're not expecting, for instance, we could see Tesla just straight up gap down and just start dropping pretty hard into like some lower level like this. It could come all the way back down to gap down to like 280 and just start tanking afterwards because of the bearish divergence and etc. That's another possibility for Tesla if earnings are just not that great and etc. So like I said before, it could go either way after earnings. Hopefully this is like clear. I do apologize about all these levels. I keep them very tight because Tesla is a stock that has lots of ranges. So I'm expecting a nice pump like this, right, as we approach the big earnings event. And then afterwards, it's going to gap either up or down depending on how things go. The odds are starting to favor maybe their margins won't be that great, so it could see some downside. And there is also a bearish divergence developing on it. So, it's really anything is possible with the stock. I'm not going to like be too fixated in one direction, but we'll see what happens right before we close on Wednesday. If the technicals still look this way and they still are suggesting there's a bearish divergence and this and that, then I'm going to be a little bit more inclined in this direction, looking at the margins and what Elon Musk may say about the recession. If not, if everything changes on the technical side and things are looking good for them, then the complete opposite could happen. I'm always going to be open-minded. I don't really like to predict how earnings will go. I'm not 100% sure, to be honest with you all. I like to be as open-minded as possible, and I like to just be unbiased and just limit my exposure to the stock in terms of like trading right through earnings. I like to just secure profits right before if I am holding anything, and I like to just manage risks very well. Okay, so I hope this is clear. We're going to likely uptrend approaching earnings. Then after earnings come out, it's all up to Elon Musk and Tesla and their reports and how investors interpret what we're about to see. And we'll wait and see from there. With that said, thank you for listening. Have an absolutely spectacular rest of the day. And just know there's an opportunity regardless of where we are right now. There's opportunity to play Tesla during this pump up, which is very possible, approaching earnings, which typically happens. There's a lot of opportunity here. So we'll see which way it goes. And then it's up to you to decide what you want to do. If you want to play earnings, that's up to you, but just know the risks and be very careful. Okay? So thank you for listening. We will see what Tesla's margins look like over the next couple of weeks. Not weeks, days. I'm sorry about that, guys. The next couple of days. And we're going to find out what happens to the stock based off their earnings, their cash flow, their balance sheets, and a bunch of things like that. Until then, thank you for listening. Have a great day. Enjoy your weekend. Tesla to the moon as long term is very bright. And peace out.